Ladies and gentlemen, here he is. The sensation, Jason Carbon.
He's the fucking champion of the world!
Nuthouse Stevenson, piece of shit.
No, I think Rosado good boy. Rosado is good boy.
I've become a massive international superstar. It's as simple as that.
I eat your ass on a lot, bitch. Scared of the real man. I'll fuck you till you love me, faggot.
I'm going to physically shoot David Hay. He fucking glassed me. He glassed me. Who's out?
I'm Shannon Briggs. I'm hard to kill. I'm the black beat the ball. I'm hard to fucking kill.
Well, I believe Christopher can take a punch. I'm very good at math and looking at a fighter and seeing what his abilities are. I can't see that Golovkin has anything like Christopher's speed, his power, his punching ability, his hand speed, his foot movement. I don't see that from a calculating point of view. I don't see that he has anything like that. So then it's going to come down to heart.
I spoke to Joe Gallagher. They don't want to fight Carl Frampton. And the bottom line is, no disrespect to Ross Branker. These guys aren't good enough to face Carl Frampton.
I'm the best heavyweight champion in the world. I'm have WBC with me. I'm undefeated champion. Undisputed champion. I want good next.
He's got my diamylribonucleic acid.
Undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Who next?
I love boxing sounds. It's as simple as that.
Hello, Boxing Asylum Patreon subscribers. It's Steve here. A bit of intro classic for you there. Kurt Ward, I think, put that together. R.I.P. Kurt Ward. We've got Andy Patterson on the call and Ozzy Smith. We're going to be going balls deep, as they say, on quite a few subjects. I'm going to be going in the chat soon, so if anybody wants to suggest anything they want us to talk about, let me know and we'll do that. Just before we do so, Andy, maybe you would know this, or Ozzy. On that introduction, I've always wondered when Eddie Hearn's talking about Carl Frampton, he says, no disrespect to, is it Ross Branker or something? Who's he talking about?
I always say that I thought it was in like Boss Rankin or something. No, I could never make that one out.
I don't know. I wonder who he was on about. Maybe Kurt will know.
I thought it was a Ross somebody actually. But I go on Frampton's record and I have a look and.
What fights did he actually promote? Frampton's. Could he be that many?
Very few. The Steve Molitor fight. He had. The first headliner that was he had Mark Kwan, which was the one the McCluskey Prescott undercard.
What about Martinez, the first fight?
The first Clico Martinez, I think, was the last fight they did together. Yeah, he definitely promoted that. So maybe someone was calling Frampton out at the time. I'm not sure.
Right. Was it Prosper Anchor? That's what it could have been.
Prosper Anchor, that's right.
No disrespect to Prosper Anchor.
Yeah,
that would be it. There you go.
Because he knocked him out in a couple of rounds, didn't he?
Then
for the Commonwealth title.
That's right. And then he went to. I remember seeing him on undercard the Froch Booty fight down in Nottingham.
Was that the Chris Hughes one? Or Raul Harales?
Raul Harales fight. It was a kind of boring fight. He just dominated him, kind of like sitting around, but using the jab.
That's right. He was a big, tall guy, Harales. Yeah. Well, we've cleared that one up. Well done, Ozzy. Prosper Anchor. You know, he's not good enough to face Carl Frampton, and he wasn't. I think he got rid of him about 2 or 3 rounds. So yeah, we've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but that's fine. I've always wondered that every time we've listened to it. Ozzy, let's go in for you first. I believe there's a couple of people who have served your ire so far. Dave Allen and maybe a bit of Zelfa Barrett as well. What do you want to go through first?
Yeah, I'll start on with Zelfa last week. Now, I listened to the pod. Obviously, I had to serve a 1-week suspension, which I voiced my concerns and disappointment at, but I'm back. The 2.0 version. And in terms of Zelfa, I thought the matchmaking was okay, to be honest. I look at Ronnie Clark's record, and whilst he's been a kickboxing world champion, every time he stepped up at domestic level, he's lost. Troy James, Craig Evans, Martin Ward. He's always fallen short. Now, arguably, Anthony Kakachi as well. It's another one. Now, I look at his record, and his best wins are probably something like a Jordan McCory or something like that. So he doesn't stand out. Now, I understand he's definitely got the experience, but for me, I felt Zelfa Barrett, he struggled against the southpaw. And it was sometimes as simple as that. He looked sluggish. I've since found out that they took the weight a bit lightly again, and he did have to burn off a couple of pounds, which was necessary. Notice he was in for one of the IBF belts as well, so he could only put 10. I presume, does it apply to all IBF belts that he can only put £10 on the day after? I think it does, doesn't it?
I believe
it was lifted after the unification fights. It doesn't count, but if it's I think if it's on the belt on its own, I think it's the £10 rehydration.
Yeah, so this is the first time that he's had to encounter that as well. He's not small for the weight, but I would say he's definitely the top end. And ultimately, I felt like there were some real good points made last week. But in terms of the matchmaking, I thought it was fine. I know someone mentioned in a Maxi Hughes, but he's actually he's mandatory for the British title. So that wasn't something that was available. The concerning thing is that Ronnie Clark took the fight on 3 weeks' notice, which is a concern. Now, you could look at it for Zelfa's way as well. Were they always going with Ronnie Clark or not? It's definitely an interesting one. And I think he's got a lot of things to learn. I mentioned last on Twitter that he'll learn more from this fight than he will in going knocking over another 5 journeymen. And hopefully it brings out the best in him. I still think he's got ability. I still think he can go far. I mean, you don't have people like Carl Frampton and things like that making this up just for the cameras, because it can make them look stupid as well. I've spoken to a lot of people up in the Northwest, and they're really, really big on Zelfa. They still think that. So fingers crossed they can learn from it. Frank Warren's on about he wants the rematch within the next 4 or 5 months. So I'm not sure what the plan is. I think Barrett's got a mandatory for his English title, so maybe he takes that and then goes in with Ronnie Clark again. But it's definitely going to be an interesting one. And so that was my first point. And my second point was Dave Allen. Now, Dave Allen is a boxer that has basically got into the position he is through a strong social media following. Probably 2 years ago, nobody cared about him. He barely sold any tickets, but because he's got the banter on Twitter, people love him now, and he's propelled him into this position. And I read with disappointment more on his comments about Daniel Dubois last week. Now, I think Dubois didn't look at his best. I thought he was clumsy at times, and he was looking for the same shot on the stoppage. Had he give himself a bit of distance and give himself the extension, I think he would have got rid of DL Jones a lot earlier. But for Allen to come out and claim people have been saying he's the next Tyson. Nobody said that whatsoever. Nobody at all. Now, this is Dave Allen that has got another Commonwealth belt opportunity for no apparent reason apart from his following. Completely undeserved. His first shot was undeserved. He took fights against Dillian White and Luis Ortiz stupidly. The Ortiz fight was appalling matchmaking. Absolutely appalling matchmaking. And he came out with some serious, serious injuries. And it could have been a lot worse for him. I know he had a badly broken jaw. His tongue was severed in a couple of places. So I think Dave Allen needs to look at himself rather than going in on Dubois. I think people forget, the hype can be annoying, but at the same time, it's going to happen. He's a big, strong heavyweight. He's 20. He's knocking people out. And from what I'm aware of, that he's been pushed from one of his promoters to go in on Dubois, and he's obviously bowing down to them now, and it's frustrating to see more than anything. Allen's not got the best of ability, so if they do go, and I hope Dubois absolutely annihilates him.
I agree with what you're saying, Ozzy. I wonder if the point you made at the end there seems true to me. They're obviously seeing an opportunity. First of all, he's going to get a lot of redemption opportunities because I think first and foremost he's a heavyweight, and everybody loves a heavyweight. They seem to get more opportunities than most, so Eddie will keep pushing him. And like you say, Eddie will be happy to send him over to Box Nation. You know, it's like a free pass, chuck him over. He'll have a chance against Dubois, get himself a bit of exposure. So I think this is fake beef.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, if people have got the time and they go back over Dave Allen's tweets, probably when Dubois first came on the scene, maybe a bit more, he was big on him. Now, he was praising him, saying he's very good, he's quick, he's strong. But ever since this performance, which it's like people can't put in a poor performance these days. And bear in mind, he did the job. He's encountered things that David Price had none of. He had a man trying to old man him, leaning on him, boring his head in. David Price had none of that. David Price had people who stood in front of him and he knocked him out. As soon as it got a bit, like someone was putting a bit of weight on him, he got stopped. So they're all little things that Dubois at 20, they tick boxes for him. As much as DL Jones, I wouldn't say he had success and he bored his head in, Dubois eventually did deal with him, and it's a box tick for him. But yeah, completely agree. Allen's, it looks like he's basically been told to go in on him, create this fake opinion of him. It strikes me as a jealousy, to be honest, that Dubois has been given an opportunity and maybe they've been told to go in on him. And if Allen loses tomorrow, it's a case of, right, he'll be sent over to a Warren show. Hearn won't be that bothered. But if he wins tomorrow, it's a case of they're going to ramp up the Dubois criticism as well. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. But yeah, it's more fake beef, completely unnecessary, and good fights don't need that. I would happily see Dubois Allen. I do think he would ask different questions of him. We know he can take a shot. It doesn't need all this stupid, bogus comments and things like that. And I think people should support Dubois in the sense that he's 20 years old. He's a big, big guy. He can punch. Let's get on the journey. Let's enjoy it. He's one boxer that doesn't go out there and blow his own trumpet. You listen to him, he seems a bit of a dope, to be honest, but I've nothing wrong with that at all. He gets in the ring, he does the job, he gets out and he goes back to the gym. He's knocking people out when they're in front of him. Let's enjoy it.
Andy, just before we bring you in on a talking point of your choice, I saw a press release that came out earlier, and I know press releases are there to blow smoke and they're all a bit of bullshit and whatever, but Kell Brook saying, I will dominate at light middleweight or super welterweight, as they call it. This is absolute bollocks, this is. I don't think Kell Brook's heart is in the game for a start, but I do not foresee any chance that he dominates at super welterweight whatsoever. You're looking at the likes of Jamel Charlo, you've got Lara, you've got Jarrett Hurd, even Saddam Ali, this Kanat Islam, who's someone I'm really big on, he's coming through as well at the moment. You've got Julian Williams, even Charles Hatley, Erickson Lubin, Austin Trout still knocking around. There is no chance. I don't even see Brook maybe fighting one of those names, two at the absolute maximum, but dominating at light middleweight, no chance.
You talk about domination, mate. You're talking about actually kind of feathering your nest and actually staying there and, as you say, clear up. You listed a whole list of names. We all know this division needs to be ironed out somewhat. We're all kind of hoping the next World Boxing Super Series is going to involve this division, which I don't think it will. But it's usually, I agree with you. I mean, like I said, Rabchenko, I know he's highly ranked with one of the organisations and stuff, but he's not going to be looking like, say, at your Charlo, Lara, Hurd, Ali. If anything, he's going to be looking at the some sort of kind of. I mean, there's Liam Smith, for example, ranked in the WBC rankings. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and get that fight made. Kamagai, another also run. But that's a tough fight for Brook. Regardless, it's a tough fight for anybody. Who wants that type of work? Michel Soro, I mean, that's one fight they would probably look at, but if, as you say, complete bollocks, it's an absolute mirage. It's all about the journey, I suppose. But if you're looking like, say, your Islams, your Hogan, Jimmy Kelly's, maybe even Julian Williams and stuff like that, I think that's the kind of thing you're going to be looking at. But at some point, he's going to have to dip his toes somewhere. He's not got a lot of time left either. So, if you're going to force me to pick one of the titleists, it would probably need to go with, like, say, Saddam Ali. I don't think he wants to have any business with her. That's just a relentless fight. Lara's possibly beatable as well, but southpaw, tricky, could be a dodgy one. And we all know what Charlo can do, so I think they're going to be taking the kind of easy route. You know what Hearn's like anyway. Hearn likes to kind of, he likes a pound note, likes to sell out the kind of arenas. So it'll be the easiest fight for the most reward, and I think that'll be the WBO route.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even if he was to fight the likes of Julian Williams, I wouldn't even put that as a foregone conclusion. I think Williams would give him a hell of a fight. And like I said, this Islam, I really like the look of him. The likes of Jimmy Kelly and even Dennis Hogan, you couldn't really put him in against those guys on Sky Sports. I mean, Jimmy Kelly, he hadn't even fought a 12-rounder when he went in against Liam Smith. That's one of the most farcical world title fights that I've ever seen. Andy, wasn't it one of the Garcias that you were going to have a go at or something? Is it Mikey or is it Danny? It could be any of them.
It's Mikey, actually. No, I could probably come across a bit of a hater with him actually recently, especially some of the tweets and the videos and that. But I've been watching a fair bit of his comments, fair bit of his fights and stuff now. I remember way back in the early days of the podcast, I'm talking maybe about 4 years back or whatever, we were actually talking about super featherweights and stuff. And the Garcia name did come up, and the podcast was really high. Mikey Garcia, everybody believed he was going to be the heir apparent to Manny Pacquiao. At least maybe that was what Bob Arum was kind of like planning towards the, maybe around about this time, when Pacquiao was ready to go, ready to retire, and Garcia should be coming into his physical prime at the minute. So I think you kind of see what Arum is maybe aiming at here, but he took the 2 years out. That's his own decision. He goes to court. He wants to be a free agent. He has to sit out the 2 years, whatever it was. That's a big cost to him. So I didn't want to sound like I'm wanting to hate on the guy for making his own decisions. He wants to be his own man. He wants to make the most money possible and try and cut out the middleman somewhat. But I just think when coming back, he's talking. I don't know if he's trying to talk himself into a super fight or whatever or not, but this isn't a Ray Leonard type character we're talking about here. This isn't a guy who's coming off Olympic Games with gold medals, a backstory, absolute box office, must see, must watch, must listen. This is Mikey Garcia, one of the most boring individuals you actually ever hear speak. I just think, the way he's come back here and just who he's calling out. I mean, okay, I understand the Miguel Cotto fight at one point was I think, let me get this right now, I think it would be around about after the Golovkin-Canelo draw came in. I think then Cotto was looking to fight the winner of that, so he's then thinking to himself, right, fuck, I need an opponent. I think the Garcia fight was an absolute possibility. I think it was actually reported somewhere that they were close to making that fight, and then Garcia come back and said no because Golden Boy wanted options or something like that, and maybe 2 or 3 feature fights. That's fine. He said no. He spent 2 years out the ring to get that right. So fair enough. But the thing is, he then starts coming out and he's calling out everybody. Like Sean Porter at the minute, he's trying to call out everybody so he can get a fight. Well, this guy's doing the exact same thing. He, for example, he's saying to Bob Arum, "Let me borrow Terence Crawford." He's not wanting that Crawford fight. He waited until Crawford moved up in weight. He must remember what happened to him in the amateurs when they actually fought. He knows that Spence. He might be forced to move up in weight at some point. He'll be calling him out shortly. He's using the old Bob Arum excuse for fights not happening. He's telling us he's a promotional free agent and he's tuning up on PBC aligned fighters. I mean, this Lipinets, he's PBC aligned. Broner, his Latikanen was signed by Al Heyman for a fair bit. I'm not sure about Rojas or whatever, but I just think and he's talking about Lomachenko. He says if you want to, if you come to 135, I'll be here. Then Lomachenko, I think, is pretty much going to come up. He decides to go to 140. He fights Broner. He says after Broner fight, or maybe even before it, that he's not a 140 fighter. He's really a 135 fighter. But then he's calling it likes of Spence, likes of Crawford. And he said he goes up to 140 for a title fight, which is fair enough. The options were kind of bare at that minute. But he could have come down. He could have maybe forced the Linares fight. WBC have called for that fight as well. I just think he's blown smoke up his own arse. He's actually got opinions of grandeur, but at the same time as he's fought for that right, he spent 2 years, he's probably his prime out the ring to get that right to be what he is at the minute. But I just think he needs to kind of stop fucking talking shite, because you're calling out all these fighters and they're not going to happen. I mean, he's no one to work with Bob Arum to get the Lomachenko fight. Linares Lomachenko is looking possible at the minute. So I just think this guy needs to kind of sit down, decide what division he's going to fight in, and try and take it from there. But yo-yoing between weights. Simple fact is this: he's trying to kind of create enough interest to get a super fight that's maybe going to be pay-per-view money. He's trying to use the Floyd Mayweather model, but he's not a big enough star. He's not got the panache. He's just not got the wherewithal. He's just not got the the verbals to actually kind of put it across. I just think he's absolutely full of shit.
Well said, Andy. I can't disagree really with any of that, to be honest with you. Ozzy, just changing tact. I was doing a video for the Patreon subscribers. I'm sure they would have seen it by now. And I was discussing the unfortunate, tragic death of Scott Westgarth from last week. We were talking about it live on air. I think that someone had been rushed to hospital and the Hibbert Woodhouse fight had been cancelled because of this. And obviously it was Scott who was really struggling at the time and didn't manage to pull through. I mean, these things happen, and I mentioned in the video, Ozzy, that we have tragedies with rugby, with horse riding, and they often outweigh the amount of tragedies that we have with boxing. Considering it's two guys punching each other in the head, there aren't actually as many tragedies as people would perceive. I mean, is there any way we can make this sport safer, or is it just something that's just going to happen when you're hitting each other in the head?
I think it's exactly that. I think more people die surfing, motorsport, things like that. And in terms of boxing, the tragedy rate isn't as high as what people make out. I think when it happens, it's more highlighted because it's two people hitting each other, obviously in the head, the body, etc., things like that. But it's one of those where it's bound to happen. Nobody says before, obviously it's. I think the only way they can do is potentially do more brain scans. But if an injury happens during the fight, then it's unavoidable. There's nothing you can do. You can't scan somebody every, in the minute between every round or something like that. It's impossible. Now, it's one of those. It probably wasn't down to the weight, but obviously sometimes that doesn't help anything. If they're cutting, they're trying to get 5-6 pounds off, to make the weight, and then they're really dehydrating themselves. That doesn't help. So do you go back to same day weigh-ins? I can't see that happening. I think the authorities, particularly in the UK, do everything they can to stop things like this. The only thing you would say is, do you put thicker gloves on or something like that? What is it, 8 ounce up to light welterweight, and 10 ounce after anything above that.
Yeah.
Do you go to 10 ounce up to 10 stone and then 12 ounce? But again, I can't see that happening. Again, it was an awful, awful tragedy, but it's one of those where, sadly, I think it is unavoidable in terms of what's going on. The few and far between. I know injuries happen, but injuries can happen in any sport. It's one of those where one may not happen now, a death may not happen for the next 10 years. It's just an unfortunate circumstance. And I think from the comments of what the fighter said, he loved boxing. He absolutely loved it. It's what he lived for. So it's where the community all comes together, and sadly, whilst I wouldn't, obviously it's an awful, awful tragedy. I think other sports do. Deaths can happen a lot more. So it's one of those. I think everything is done, and unless there's some groundbreaking treatments or things that can happen. Maybe more.
Well, let me mention, Ozzy, sorry to interrupt you. Actually, while you mentioned that, last year, the British and Irish Boxing Association, which is also known as obviously the Unlicensed or Maltese Boxing Commission, they brought in these infrared scanners, and they can scan the brain. After every fight, they use this scanner, and they automatically scan the brain of the people who've just boxed. And within 3 minutes, they can do a full scan, whereas an MRI scan of the brain takes between 20 and 45 minutes to complete. So there's a chance here. I'm just reading an article on it now. Before symptoms are shown, such as headaches or dizziness, they can detect brain bleeds with a 90% accuracy. Now, the British Boxing Board of Control haven't taken this on. Is that something we could look at, maybe?
100%. 100%. And it's an investment that I would like to see the board make, whether it's reducing the costs or a board member brings them, because some of the smaller promoters barely make money off these shows anyway. So if they've got to go and pay for one of these machines, I think it's an investment that the board should make, and they're readily available at every boxing show, no matter whether there's 100 people there or 100,000 people there. At the end of the day, it's still two fighters getting in the ring. And if those machines are available, then 100%, it's something that should happen without a doubt after every fight, no matter what. At the end of the day, you can't put a price on someone's life. So if the machines are there readily available, then 100%, let's get them in.
Andy, word from you on this as well. Obviously, they've tried things like head guards. We've noted that they don't work. They've taken them away in the amateur boxing. We have to really monitor things like hydration, weight cutting, all that type of stuff, don't we, to try and just prevent these things as well as we can.
I remember reading an article actually for, I think it was an association, a physician ringside. It was like something 2014, 2015. It was actually kind of based on MMA fighters, and they said that one study had found that 39% of MMA fighters were entering competition in a dehydrated state. Because how bad it was, that they were using IVs to rehydrate, which is actually considered a doping violation by many organisations as it is. But just I was discussing this the other week there, actually. Obviously, we had Lewis Neri against Shizuki Yamanaka there. Obviously, Neri actually missed weight so much that if he was actually fighting the weight division above, he was still overweight, which is absolutely deplorable. I don't know if I'm right in saying, but I need to go and double check, but I'm sure that the substance that he got found positive for was actually maybe even a weight cutter. So he's made weight for the first fight, no problem. Rematch, he's what, something like, what was it, 7 pounds overweight. Absolutely incredible. These guys are, some of them are risking life and limb. I've seen some videos of Terence Crawford when he was still at lightweight, trying to make weight in that. He would lie in the rooms, towels wrapped around about him, heating on full blast. I remember one MMA fighter, he's lying in his hotel room and he's getting fanned in at 2 o'clock in the morning. Obviously they're really worrying in case he's going to end up with heat exposure or heat exhaustion, whatever it was.
You see some of them, Andy, being carried onto the scales, looking like they're flipping brain dead or something. It's shocking.
Brandon Rios looking like, I mean this respectfully, but he looked like some right out of a Holocaust film. It was absolutely horrendous. I really don't know what it does. I mean, obviously, if you go back to 8 divisions, you've got a big weight gap in between divisions. I really don't know if the same day weigh-in is going to be really what's required here, because they do say is if you're having to dehydrate yourself to make weight, if you're going to rehydrate in the normal sense, i.e. drinking, it's going to take you more than 24 hours to rehydrate properly. So you're still entering the ring dehydrated. Your brain's lost fluid. It's not protective enough. So it's going to end up causing some sort of problems. Boxing, as already mentioned there about the gloves and stuff like that, 12 rounds, 3 minutes. If you're taking punishment over those 12 rounds and stuff, it's going to leave its effect. I mean, it is like, for example, in MMA, it's probably better to get iced with 4-ounce mittens on and actually kind of stop any kind of sustained beating, and rather than take a beating for 12 rounds. So, would you prefer, take a 12 round tanking for 12 rounds or get iced in, 2 minutes? It's probably better for you getting iced in 2 minutes. But I think they're going to really have to kind of either monitor how guys make weight. I know there's a lot of guys really cutting it fine. We mentioned the hand scanners. I think that's need to become mandatory across all commissions. If you didn't have these scanners, if you can't afford it, then the fight can't be happening in your state, your city, or whatever it is. Because if these say that there's anything whatsoever to kind of bleed in the brain, which you can't even diagnose without anything actually happening to you, and then what can we do? There is no answer apart from banning the sport outright, which is never going to happen. I mean, fucking men have fought since time immemorial, so there's no way they're going to ban boxing.
No ban for boxing, hopefully. Smido, good to have you on the call with us. Just before you go off on one over whatever it is you want to speak, tell me about this, Smid. I've been having to think about the World Boxing Super Series, and they're talking about maybe having one at the light heavyweight limit. If they were to do that, you see the two guys in the super middleweight tournament at the moment, Callum Smith and George Groves, both big units. How about they take one of the spaces in the light heavyweight tournament and let the winner of the super middleweight tournament take that spot, because they could always move up in weight? That would be a good storyline, Smid. What do you think about that for an idea?
Steve, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a plausible idea. And yeah, I can see that happening. Particularly Groves, not recently by recent evidence, but previously has struggled to make it. He's been doing it a long time now. Callum Smith obviously is absolutely massive for a super middleweight. So yeah, I can see that definitely happening. And I think it would provide a good narrative to the tournament as well. You know, almost. You know, we've had undefeated or back-to-back prize fighter champions at Audley Harrison, as Kurt Ward will tell us. So yeah, I can definitely see that happen. And I think there could be some interest if they are looking at light heavyweight. I'm not saying that Frank would do it, but the likes of Anthony Yard in that would be
could be dangerous, Smid. Though, could you imagine if someone like Kovalev picked him? You could have a death on your hands. I'm not even joking.
What we've got to admit is that we're not going to get Kovalev or Stevenson or Jack in this tournament. Even though Kovalev does have roots in the Sauerland map, I still can't see him coming back to Europe. So I think it'll be at the next level down, but it still could be very exciting.
Tell me another thing as well, Smid, what I'm thinking World Boxing Super Series. I heard a few people saying that if George Groves can't make the date and they are pushing the date, then maybe Jürgen Bremer could take his place and fight Callum Smith in the final. Now I'm not happy with this, because what's to say that Bremer, who pulled out with a cold, didn't get a little nudge and said, look, what? George Groves hurt his shoulder last weekend. You see, if you just hold tight, you could be fighting Callum Smith in the final. Conspiracy theory, Smid.
I quite like that. My theory on Bremer was that he just can't make the weight. I know he made it the first time round, but it's been a long time since he had made it before this tournament. I just think he can't make the weight. And even if he had a slight cold or a slight problem that most fighters would get through, it's obviously not going to help him cutting weight the couple of weeks before the fight. So maybe a genuine but minor issue for Bremer has meant that he can't make the weight, something that he's not done regularly before. But that conspiracy theory, I've heard crazier conspiracy theories in boxing, including this week regarding Louis Ortiz.
We'll have a good conspiracy theory. Right, Smido, we're glad to have you on the call on Friday night. You're the horse racing guru that you are. I want to squeeze all the juice out of you, Smid. What's pissing you off, or what do you want to go off on in the world of boxing at the moment?
I don't really know. I mean, it's normally we have a bash at Eddie Hearn. I think we can have a bit of a bash at Frank, really. A couple of shit opponents for Yard and Dubois last week. I think we've covered them off. I'm just... Tony Bellew pisses me off weekly. Just the whole next gen stuff pisses me off. I know we had a decent fight from Ritson, but next gen, I mean, they're all, none of them are youngsters. Just generally the normal shit. I think that that's it really. Just the normal shit. I thought I'd come on for 10 minutes for our loyal listeners on a Friday night. Everyone's been snowed in. It doesn't appear to have had much impact on the boxing this weekend. I know Andy feared that the Taylor event in Scotland might be affected, but it doesn't appear to have done. So we've got a good week coming on really. The only thing I can really moan about is, and I did so on Sunday, is the lack of coverage of the Superfly card on Sunday. Really disappointed a lot of fans, particularly those like me that pay £12 a month for the Channel of Champions.
Okay, Smid, stay on for as long as you want. It
won't be long.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll be coming back to you in a minute. Don't worry. You mentioned Bellew against Hay there, and I know that Rapping Rob Kelly has a bit of something to get off his chest regarding Hay and Bellew. You've been scraping together the money for the pay-per-view, Rob. Only a couple of months to go before this extravaganza will be coming to a TV screen near you.
What a fucking joke that is, like. What a joke. Can you hear me, yeah?
Yep, perfect, yep.
What's happening, mate? I'm seeing your countrymen stealing safes, Lidl's and that, doing the road and ICBs and stuff. What the fuck?
No, man. Ireland can't cope with the snow at all. Like 2 days of it, and the fucking place descends into madness. There was I saw other footage today of a Centra in Tala with like 100 people, like just your regular corner shop, like about 100 people deep queuing to get into it today. Absolute. But you see, the thing is, right, the weather forecasters are always playing tricks on us over here. It's always, status orange, stay inside, status red. And we were like, yeah, right. Then the fucking snow hit, man, and it was a different story.
Status orange in Ireland. Holy fuck.
That's when they stay outside. Yeah, that's when they stay outside. But yeah, no, it's fucking, man. So my back, I know I sent just pictures earlier. Like I went out, I tried to bring the dog for a walk to go to the toilet there about 10 minutes. That's why I was late. Like, it took me about 10 minutes to get back. Fucking, it's an absolute blizzard out there. It is Kovalev weather. I was like Rocky. I've seen a Rocky when he's going up the mountain. Rocky 4 today.
You thought you were training with Abel Sanchez, Rob?
Yeah, right. But yeah, man, that fucking Hay Bellew fight, like, what a joke that is, like, absolute joke. Did anyone here want to see that rematch?
Nope, I don't want to see it.
No.
In fact, the only thing I maybe want to see is maybe a semi-fit Hay, a fully fit Hay. I mean, you can actually see Hay wobbling to the fucking ring in that fight.
Like, but it's the pantomime shit that I can't abide by. Like, and you've got Eddie, like, he's such a fucking salesman. Like, I know he's a salesman, but we get it. Like, insiders get it. We know you're trying to sell us the fight. But how the fuck are you trying to sell us this fight? He's already had to pull out injured once upon a time. So you're and he was injured in the last fight. He hasn't fought a live body since Klitschko, since Derek Chisora. Was Derek Chisora even a live body then when he fought him? Chisora was shot, like, wasn't he? The last time
I think Chisora was live going into the fight. I think he's been pretty much shot thereafter. I think Chisora was live going into it, though, to be fair.
I don't know, man. I think that Klitschko beating that he took before that knocked all the fight out of him, to be honest with you. Like, and Hay got him. It was a decent performance. Again, another contrived event from David Hay. Like, he's a master stroker, like, no Rita Ora. But that's the other thing. This fake beef between the two of them. The two of them have cooked this up between them. Like, from that moment he called him the wrong name, called him Sideshow or SpongeBob SquarePants instead of Sideshow Bob. From that moment, like, where Bellew's like, he's been conning the British public. Yeah, right. You too, dickhead. The two of you are in it together. And, like, if they really hate each other, right? If they really don't like each other and there's real bad blood there, why don't you bring Rita Ora out with you for your ring walk, Bellew? Bring Rita Ora with you. Have her fucking accompany you to the ring, or have her sing the national anthem if you really want to get under his skin. This is a joke, like. And I tell you one thing, casuals buy into this shit, man. They still love the Haymaker. No Tommy, but they still love the Haymaker, the casuals. Like, they fucking love him. He's like you know what I mean? He was the Joshua before Joshua. It's not that long ago, like, where David Hay was top of the world. Like, you know, he had the TV show there with Ricky Gervais, fucking Justin Bieber in the build up to that Klitschko fight. If he'd have won that fight, man, the fucking sky would have been the limit. But the fact is, he shit it then, and ever since then, his career's been a joke. Like, the whole Chisora fight was contrived as well. So it was a Sauerland, one of them that was with who used to be with Klitschko? What was his promoter's name? That guy, the older guy.
Bonte.
Yeah, Bonte says to him in the press conference, didn't he? He said, when he turned up at the Chisora Klitschko press conference, he said, "Go away, David. You're a salesman. You had your shot. You're a salesman." That's exactly what he is. Like, he's had these fights on Dave. Absolute shite. Like, the fella's looking for the ground before he hit the deck in one of them. Like, absolute shite. And then they've put this together. Like, this is the only opponent where they could sell tickets. 3 of them have got together, and now we're getting it twice. Like, as if it wasn't bad enough the first time. And like I said before a few times, I was jarred when I was watching it in the pub, and I thought Bellew was after genuinely pulling off with, like, a bit of an upset, like, and knocking him out. Then I look back at the fight when I was sober. I was like, holy shit, he was injured the whole time. Like, so we're getting to see the rematch, and we've got the new book. Trying to fucking turn heel, and Bellew's now, fuck off, the 2 years. Like, I'm sick of it. I don't want to see that shit. Like,
I just think it's extremely cynical.
Completely.
Just from all of them. I mean, there was hugging and kissing after, Bellew saying, "Oh, he's better looking than me," blah blah blah. Best man won on the night. I'll do the rematch on your terms. But I just think it's very cynical. And for David Hay, now at 38, 7 or 8, 37, 38. He said he was retiring at 32 all those years ago. I just don't know what the end game is for Hay.
Probably because the missus took him for half in the divorce, I'd say, or she's about to.
Yeah, I just don't know what the end game is. I mean, say he beats Bellew, right? We either get talk of a third, or we go down the route of Fury or something like that. I know they've got history there, but I just don't know the end game. I don't think he's going to fight Joshua. I can't see Hay ever fighting Joshua. Possibly.
Don't you rule it out, man. Don't you rule that out. If he knocks Tony Bellew out in 2 rounds,
I just don't think
the Barnett would be licking his chops at the fact that at the 2 of them, putting the 2 of them in together.
Absolutely. But I think Joshua's kind of set, this year or the next. He's got the likes of Wilder. They'll wait for Fury to come back. I don't think Hay's part of that plan. I just don't see the end game in Hay other than milking the public for another pay-per-view, which he's definitely doing.
Ozzy,
I
you
1,000,000%
have
agree with
just.
you. Sorry, Steve. I 1,000,000% agree with you, Smitho. It is cynical. It's about as cynical as I'm going to be for your betting tips in the future, you motherfucker. No, I'm joking.
Hey, wait, we've had a good week on boxing because there ain't many people in this country that are on Kovalev KO this weekend at 10 to 11.
All right, I'll keep my money in my pocket, man. The other fella's going to get a decision. You know, I'm joking.
Ozzy, you were talking earlier about Daniel Dubois. It's obviously a bit of a resurgence for the heavyweight division at the moment. We've got Joshua Parker coming up. Obviously, Ortiz, Wilder are fighting each other as well. Are you happy that the fact that these belt holders are fighting each other and we might find a unified champion at some point? At least, even if it's a weak era, we are going to hopefully see the best fight the best and sort out who's at the top of the tree.
Yeah, you can't be unhappy, can you? In a division where it's relatively threadbare, as in you've got, for example, like a top four, and that's about it. I think they need to fight each other. Joshua Parker, whilst I think it's relatively routine for Anthony Joshua, I'm glad it's happening because some of the shit Joseph Parker's been in recently, including Hughie Fury, because the fight was garbage, has been poor. So Joshua, if he cleans that up, then it paves the way for a Wilder fight. I have no interest in seeing Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury this year, not one bit. I want Fury to go and get 3 or 4 fights under his belt, prove that he's still got it, prove that he can do things, then go in with him. Not have a crappy warm-up and then go in with Joshua and him look basically like he could look like a David Hay, completely just gone out his depth. As in, I know Hay had the injury, but all the weight coming off may affect Fury. I have no interest in that. I think Wilder will come through Ortiz, and I think he'll stop him in very good fashion. And then there is no reason why we can't see a Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder fight for all the belts. Now they've spoken about 2 fights happening, one in America and one in the UK. I wouldn't be unhappy with that. One thing I would say with Wilder is I always think he's got a get out. He's probably the hardest hitting heavyweight at the moment. And we've seen that if Joshua gets clipped, he will go down. And whilst he can take a shot, I think Wilder hits very, very hard. And if he lands clean with one of those, it could be lights out. Probably the other way around as well. If Joshua clocks Wilder, it could be curtains for Wilder as well. But I think that's what could be interesting. They both hit hard, and they can both really pump. They both are fragile to a shot as well. So I'm glad. I'm a fan of all unifications. It's good to see them happen. It's what we want to see, and there is a couple of younger heavyweights coming through now. Like I said, Dubois is a long way off yet. Gorman, similar level. This Flip Hergovich, he's another one that people are raving about him. So there's a trio there that you never know we could be speaking about in a couple of years' time, and they're in the same situation. Can't forget Big Pricey as well. You never know.
Sure.
Could he pull it off against Povetkin?
My problem with unifications, Oz, is that we get unification and then within weeks of them happening, the governing bodies do something to dispel them. We saw what happened to Fury. There's even been
Ryan Burnett.
with Ryan Burnett. I mean, it's either the governing bodies or the promoters. The 3 letters that won't be mentioned. They get a super champion or a unified champion, then they bring out a regular a week after. They just don't. They don't stick to them.
Yeah, it draws a line in the sand, but then there's no longevity to that.
Yeah, so we celebrate it. We celebrate it. Great. We've got a unified champion, Terence Crawford, or Ward had a few belts. Kovalev obviously did at some stage. And then it just gets disbanded. I think it just annoys me.
I think the IBF are partly to blame for this as well, because on one side I applaud that they do enforce the mandatory, but at the same time you look at some of the mandatories. Kell Brooks being an example. They had Jojo Dan and Kevin Bizier. Both 2 awful opponents, yet Brook potentially had to turn down bigger fights. I'm not saying there was any on the table to fight these mandatories. And it was the same. They've done it with Burnett as well, and the WBA have as well. They've called both mandatories. Why couldn't they basically speak between themselves, say, right, this is a mandatory, stick the other belt on the line, and then you just have 2 mandatories in a row if you want to keep your belts. Instead, they get separated, and we see bullshit things like that now where Paul Butler and Matchroom, and this is what will happen now, and this is what fucks me off. Paul Butler will box for a vacant title. He has a chance of winning. He wins. What's the fight that will happen next? Ryan Burnett against Paul Butler in a unification, and it's manufactured. Butler, for me, Butler has done absolutely naff all to warrant. He did. Frank Warren did very well to get him a shot in the first place against Stuart Hall. He then got him another shot at home against Zolani Tete. Again, probably undeserved, because you look at Butler's record, and in all honesty, it ain't that good. His best win is probably Stuart Hall, and he's beaten him twice. Now, he's somehow got this shot against. It's did Burnett vacate the IBF or the WBA? I can't remember now.
The IBF, because they were forcing Haskins and Rodriguez, wasn't it? But Rodriguez didn't want to fight Haskins. They wanted the mandatory purse, immediately. So then they had to vacate the IBF conveniently. Yeah.
So Butler's going to go in with him now, and it's another world title shot. Now, Paul Butler, that will be his 3rd world title shot. Like, you look at his record now. Stuart Hall. After that, he's dropped down to probably someone like I thought he boxed Ian Butcher, and he hasn't. That was Kev Satchel. There's nobody else on the record, and this is what really. I'm going off on straying a bit away now, but in terms of both the main promoters in the UK, is that Anthony Yard, he's ranked number 2 in the WBO world rankings. Bollocks. He's done nothing to warrant that ranking whatsoever. He's got one of these fringe belts, and because he's defended it against a couple of donuts, they propel him up these rankings. I agree with you, Steve. That mandatory gets called, and say he somehow worms his way into the mandatory slot, he could get absolutely destroyed off Kovalev. Absolutely destroyed. And it's a case of that these fringe belts, whilst they can have the bonuses in terms of, like lads make the weight properly, so they can say they're a middleweight, but they regularly weigh in at like 166. They have to make 160. But at the same time, they give false rankings out. James Tennyson, another example. Paul Butler. They've no serious wins on the record, and they can pick up these belts, and then they propel them up the world rankings. All the rankings are an utter mess at the moment, and I can't see it ever being sorted out because the money is that high for these sanctioning fees now.
Right, guys, a few more talking points before we get out of here for the evening. Smido, I'm going to be coming to you very shortly and to talk about Tyon Booth and boxers on social media. Before we do so, Andy, tell me about this Carl Frampton Barry McGuigan thing. It's going on at the moment. What are some of the possible outcomes and scenarios? It's not good, is it, getting dragged through the courts? I mean, what type of thing could we be seeing? Will it have any impact on British boxing? It's a lot of conjecture at the moment.
That's why I wouldn't want to comment on it, because obviously, ongoing legal case or whatever and that, but it's probably the Irish guys will probably know better than me. I don't really want to comment too much on it, because you know how these things can go in boxing. If you say something, people are like, well, but it's kind of looked like the wee guy's been paid for a while, shall we say. Maybe he's had to wait for his money. Him and his wife have found money coming out of different accounts and all that sort of stuff. His mum and dad have been asked to put money into Barry's personal account and all that kind of thing. You're kind of yourself, Steve. You've had more dealings with what I've had with him, so I don't really know what the possible outcome is. I think what's going to end up happening, I know Conrad, he's basically been told there he has to stay, or McGuigan's still his manager, so I don't know if Carroll's went about it the same way as what Conrad did, and if he has, he might end up having Barry's his manager still. I really don't know how long, or maybe he one fight left. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a mess. And it's the good thing is at least he's getting to fight at the minute. But the worst case scenario for Carroll here would be is if he was to lose this case, then Barry's entitled to any future purses that So basically, he would have that last fight they had there, and this fight coming up against Donaire, maybe having to pay money towards Barry. But that's just all speculation on my part. That So, and that's one thing you don't need in these type of situations: speculations and that.
Yep, I agree, especially when Carl is towards the end of his career. I think he is towards the end of his career. He's not as far as 1 foot out the door, but he has talked about retirement, and I know that he's looking to put money in the bank and get out. So if this goes on and on, then I mean, maybe we could see him retiring sooner rather than later. But yeah, I have had dealings with Barry in the past, but saying that, it'll all come out in the wash in court, and I hope that obviously the truth just prevails, and everybody, if people have done wrong, then they get admonished for it, and the people in the right get paid, whoever that will be. But yeah, I've had dealings with them boys in the past myself, and sort of know the way things go. But we'll move on, Smido, I think, to you. Tyan Booth has been having his say on boxing, obviously, over the death of Scott Westgarth, and saying quite a few things. He likes a beer or a cider or two, as he says, and he talks a bit of shit. Where do you stand on this, Smido? Do you think that the British Boxing Board of Control should get involved when boxers are tweeting out, maybe bringing the sport into disrepute, or do you think they should take a step back and just deal with things in and around the ring? How does this whole situation sit with you?
Well, with social media in general, times are changing in all aspects of life, not just sport. But I think it's obviously a massively sensitive subject. Mr. Booth has never really achieved a hell of a lot in the ring. Obviously, he's achieved more than me in the ring, but it's not really a title holder or anything like that. And he says things to cause a reaction and get himself and his name out there a little bit. And he's achieved that previously, whether we like it or not. He's done a bit of the IFL stuff. He said some very silly things on Twitter. This was obviously massively ill-advised, but I think we spoke about the board the other week when it came. Who was the guest who we had on who got banned for a small incident at the weigh-in?
Shane Singleton.
Yeah. So the board's inconsistencies and bias towards key players that maybe are affiliated to certain promoters and certain TV channels is clear to see. Tyan Booth is not affiliated to any of the big boys. And what was the punishment, Steve? Has he been banned for 3 months?
No, I don't think anything has been decided yet. Certain people are saying that he should be thrown out the sport, and there's all sorts of things backwards and forwards on it.
Look, what he said, I've not really followed it that closely. I don't even follow him on Twitter, but what I have seen is absolutely bang out of order. But yeah, I just think we need to put into context, other stuff that's going on in terms of drug cheats and not paying fighters on time and weight cutting and whatever. I think there's more serious issues than Tyan Booth trying to make a name for himself by commenting on a fighter that's tragically passed away last weekend.
We're going to close out, guys. Don't get running off too far. We're going to close out with a little bit of talk about the class of 2018 International Boxing Hall of Fame, a little bit of vintage stuff there. Before we do, Rob, do not fear. Ultimate Boxer is here. The Ultimate Boxer tournament is coming up soon. It's like a prize fighter type thing where guys fight on the same night. And they get a certain percentage of the purse, and people vote for them on social media and that. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because we've had prize fighter before. We've had the sort of tournaments that Cedric Kushner, I think, put one on in America a while back. And then we've got the Island's Last Man Standing as well, where quite a few fighters, even though I thought it was quite a good idea, have pulled out, and it's getting televised on TG4. The point being, Rob, do you like these new formats, these new ideas? Are they innovative, or do you think we should just stick to what we know, or do you like this new tournament type of thing?
Yeah, man, I'm all for the tournaments. I was a big fan of prize fighter. Obviously, Mike Perez won it. Big Rogie won it. So there was interest from it over here. So I think it's good. I don't know what many of the fighters or what the pro level is really like in the domestic scene in Ireland. You know what I mean? I know a couple of lads trying to make their way around, but it's very much you sell your own tickets and this kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's at the lower end of the spectrum. I've always been interested to see what that format would be like in the US. So I didn't catch the tournament that you mentioned, but I always wanted to see the prize fighter go to the US. And I thought Eddie, if he was going to do one of his marketable things in the US, that would have been the one to do it with, like a Friday night fights on ESPN, load of Mexican fighters, get him in there, best man wins on the night. I think it has its pluses and its negatives. I don't know what with fellas cooling down and that, and in between fights, is there danger of them getting injured or even more, having to come through 3 fights? I know it's the same amount of rounds, but you're out of the ring for a while and everything. So I don't know about what it's like. I mean, what its long-term future is, but it's good for jamming up a bit of interest. You know what I mean? I'm all for it for that point of view. But it wouldn't light my fire, like, and it's not going to really replace like the mainstream, the way things are doing it at the moment. But it would be good to have some kind of box offs in some of these for these fringe belts kind of thing, wouldn't it? So just kind of really separate the man for the boys, and then you only get your ranking if you win the tournament. That might be some way of kind of making it more interesting, but it's not going to light me fire really, like.
Yeah, I was trying to look up that tournament actually that I was talking about. I think Maurice Harris won it. It was maybe 2003, 2004. I googled Cedric Kushner's name there, and I didn't even realise he died 3 years ago, age 66. So R.I.P. Cedric Kushner. Whenever I think of you next, there will be a void. Right, Smido's disappeared. That's fine. We'll get on to this final point, and then we'll get out of here. Andy, 2018 International Boxing Hall of Fame. The candidates were all put in, and we know who's gone forward. We've got the likes of Jim Gray, Steve Albert, broadcasters, German promoter Klaus-Peter Kohl, who did a lot of work in and around the 90s, 2000s. I think he promoted Felix Sturm at a time, Zolt Erdei, Karol Baljai, all these non-household names. But let's look at the fighters. Eric Morales, Dr. Iron Fist himself of Italy, Klitschko, and Ronald Winky Wright may be a surprise one in some people's eyes there. What do you think about the three inductees, the boxers, Andy, and maybe a brief word on their careers, or which ones you liked best?
I would like to have a quick look at the list again, mate, because I was a wee bit kind of disappointed to see Klitschko go into the first ballot anyway. I know he beat who he beat over a kind of a weak era, shall we say. I mean, obviously he quit in one of his title fights, and then obviously he got stopped in a heroic effort against Lennox Lewis. But I'm just kind of surprised that he's been in there. Now, I can understand, obviously he held the title for 2004 to about 2012 or whatever it was. He went a number of fights undefeated. Morales is obviously it's a given, I mean, what was he? I think it was the first Mexican in history or something like to win. Was it 4 titles in 4 different weight classes? Yeah. I think I'm right in saying that. One of the greats of all times. He must be in there. He must be in there about the top 40, top 50 fighters of all time. Fought them all: Barrera, Pacquiao, Zaragoza, McCullough, Kevin Kelly. Was it Gutty Espada, I think, as well. Ingen Chi. Was it Ayala, I think, maybe a fought as well. So
Paulie Ayala, yeah, good fight that was.
Absolutely, some of the fighters he fought and how he put it on the line was unbelievable. Winky, they did really want to fight Winky, didn't they? I mean, he was probably like, I'm not saying this in any similar, comment to their kind of styles and that, but he was probably like, that generation's version of kind of Mike McCallum, and that nobody wanted to fight him. It didn't really carry the name. He was a good enough fighter to make you look horrible, make you look awkward and stuff. But his record as well kind of speaks volumes. He's got wins Mosley, Trinidad, I think Quarty as well. His title record as well is quite something. It's something like, was it 12? There's something like 12 fights, 12 title fights won, and like, I don't know, 2 or 3 defeats, and maybe a draw in there somewhere. But so I would say maybe Klitschko's maybe the one that it's not sitting right with me. Right, I'm actually happy to see get in there, because, as I say, he didn't really get a lot of kind of respect and a lot of love, especially kind of amongst the casual support. It was really kind of hardcore guys that kind of like really kind of followed him. But Morales is absolute no-brainer. But I need to have a look at the other list of fighters again to see who could have got the nod as well. But I was actually surprised at Klitschko getting the nod there.
Well, Paulie Ayala was on the list, Andy. Some of the names that didn't make it, we had Ivan Calderon, we had Chris Eubank, Ricky Hatton, Gennaro Hernandez, Darius Michalchevsky, Henry Maska, Sven Otka. Who else have we got here? Fernando Vargas, one of my favourites, Wilfredo Vasquez, Michael Mora, Julian Jackson, quite a few names, Nigel Benn as well.
Just not off that list of names I made, then I can maybe see why. Eubank, obviously, I mean, I think that's the second ballot he's been on this, so you can see why I don't think he'll even go maybe in the next ballot. I think it could be 4 or 5, maybe even 6 ballots before he even gets the nod. But some of the trash he fought, we mentioned it before, with Junior getting beaten stuff, but his dad's own record. I think Ben will probably get in at some point, and probably before Eubank, or probably 2 maybe getting together, which would be a bit of a push. But I think Ben having those victories over like some McClellan and that, having to go to the depths of hell to get it, it's probably better than anything that maybe Eubank probably did on his record. And that, I mean, in my opinion, I don't care what anybody says. Ben won that rematch, and that's all there is to it. I can't, I can understand why the Germans are not getting voted in the now. If you're going to rank those three, I'd probably go Michalczewski, Henry Maskey, and then Sven Otka.
Really? Would you have Maskey above Otka, would you?
I probably would. I mean, just because I think, maybe I'm wrong to say this, but I think maybe Otka's most of his defences and that were all kind of not bought and paid for, but always had that element that you were never going to get the victory there, and obviously you got that knockout of was it Mundine? It's probably the highlight of his career, that actually.
Yeah.
Knocking out Mundine, but I was just obviously the Rob Reed fight never really sat well with me either. But I like to hear. I mean, Maskey, I know that he was a light heavyweight. He was,
Yeah, he came back, didn't he? 10 years after he lost to Virgil Hill, he was that aggrieved. He came back in 2005 to rematch Hill 10 years later and beat him. Isn't that right?
I think it's sort of along the lines. I mean, I think he only had the one defeat as well. I mean, obviously he was a decent amateur, was he not, back in the day?
Yep, I think he might have fought in the Olympics, even maybe 84, 88, something like that.
Aye, I mean, obviously, as you say, he came back for Virgil Hill and that, but he has got wins over Rocchigiani. I mean, the Graciano one, so that's a decent one. I know his record isn't all that great and stuff, and it's kind of devoid of names, but beat a shot, I would say, Iran Bartley, but Rocchigiani's a decent win over 2 fights and stuff. John Scully was. What do you say? He was world level, John Scully, but he was a good gatekeeper to have actually. And it was obviously around about this time he had Jones and that, but light heavyweight wasn't really all that cracked up to beat at that time either.
Yep, Virgil Hill beat Maskey in 1996, and then Maskey returned to fight Hill in 2007, nearly 11 years later, and gained his revenge, and then he subsequently retired. So well done to Mr. Masker. Rob, just tell me about the three guys. Wait a second. The three guys who got through, but also a few names that you might be interested in didn't make it. Don Curry. We also have Julian Jackson, who I mentioned. Rocky Lockridge, James Buddy McGirt, and another one that you might be interested in, Vinny Pazienza and Meldrick Taylor as well. So quite a few names of interest.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Meldrick in there just for the way, I suppose, for a sentimental vote for how things panned out for him after the Chavez loss. Like, everybody knows at this stage that was a classic fight, absolute cracker of a fight. Two brilliant fighters fighting at the prime of their career. One moving up the weight. One's the golden boy of America. The other's one of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time. And actually, I might have mentioned on the pod before, I read an article in Ring Magazine recently enough with Taylor. We know where to do that, like who's the hardest guy he ever fought, who's the quickest guy he ever fought, who had the best defense. He intimated that he thought Chavez's gloves were loaded in that fight. And if you look at the damage that was done to him, like it might have been it might just be all conjecture at this point or whatever, but he could have been onto something with it. He took some serious swelling, broken orbital bone, internal bleeding and all that. Like, and for a guy that didn't hit him up until the 8th round, it's kind of hard to see how he did that damage. But terrible for him how things panned out for him in the aftermath. But what a talent he was, like an absolutely unbelievable fighter. And you put him in with anybody at 40 or 47 before that fight. He was sensational to watch, absolutely sensational. Hand speed, movement, bit of punching power. And he was buying Chavez, wasn't he? Like for 8 rounds, like he was absolutely, he was dazzling. I'm like, no credit to Chavez too, because he kept going, he bit down and he got the win in the end. Controversially, but that's not his fault. He just kept going to the very end. I think he got a kind of unfair criticism for that as well. But I would like to see Meldrick in there. Maybe his record isn't all that, like, but just for sentimental purposes. Julian Jackson, kind of surprised he wasn't in there. I would go back to what Andy said. I think Bain is definitely deserving of a place in the Hall of Fame over Eubank. Like, you go to the States, beat Doug DeWitt, Iran Barkley, lose to Watson, lose to Eubank, come back. Should have beaten Eubank in that rematch, definitely. And then obviously to get off the floor against Gerald McLennan, like, and pull out a win. Obviously that fight ended in tragic circumstances too, but to get off the floor in round 1 against Gerald McLennan, who was the epitome of the boogeyman at the time. You talk about Golovkin being a boogeyman now. Thinking about the way people were talking about McClellan back then, he had the personality to go with it as well. He was a bit of a bastard, like, and he was fucking knocking guys kicking, like, wasn't he? Julian Jackson included, like, so to get up off the floor and pull that out, to me, he deserves a place in the Boxing Hall of Fame. It's a bit surprised Hatton hasn't got in there too. You know that Hatton's record was pretty good, like, Yeah, a little bit. So I know he fell short against Pacquiao and Floyd, but I'm kind of surprised he hasn't been included. But no complaints about Winky Wright. Good fighter, would fight everybody. Bit of a spoiler. Him and Hopkins, I remember, had an absolutely dreadful fight. Even though I like both guys, like fucking terrible that was. Like, I think I remember Calzaghe saying that they bored everybody to tears ahead of making the B-Hop fight. But Morales, like, what a guy. I think I posted in the chat there some of the HBO highlights of Morales' career, and Gabe was giving me stick, wasn't he? Because he said Barrera was better, but I wasn't saying who was better than who. I just was a big fan of Morales, so much so that I called one of my albums Kel Terrible after El Terrible. So delighted to see him in, like, and even it shows how good he was that he came back when he was 155 years of age. He was giving Garcia and Maidana a bit of a fight, even though he got popped on the juice and he had a bit of a beer gut. He's still a hell of a fighter, like. So we probably never see the likes of him again. You know what I mean? I know we say that all the time, but like, Jesus Christ, like, look at the wars he was in. Win over Pacquiao, 2 losses against Barrera, but a win against Barrera as well. Like, fucking nothing in the 3 of those fights. Like, could have gone either way. Absolute legend, like.
Yeah, quick shout out from me. Never really that bothered about Klitschko's career. I know he had the comeback and all that, but the fight against Lennox Lewis, a fight we've done on Punches from the Past, was the one. I enjoyed that one, and with the horrific cut, it was a shame we didn't get the rematch, but obviously Lennox, in fact, opted to retire. Big fan of Winky Wright, a bit of a road warrior. Saw him in the UK fighting against the likes of Steve Foster, and I think he went in with Ensley Bingham as well. A very technically talented fighter. I put up a video on the Facebook page last week about Wright. His technique was superb, the way he was able to transition from defense to attack so quickly, take the shots on the gloves, roll the head and fire back. He was a real technical master, I thought, Winky Wright. And as for Morales, I can't add to what the guys have said. He just fought everybody, and he was just a warrior. His fights with Barrera, the first fight with Barrera in the year 2000, remains one of my favourite fights of all time. A word from you as well, Ozzy. Mention for Ricky Hatton there. Rob mentioned Hatton towards the end. Maybe devoid of big wins. I know he knocked out Castillo with the body shot, got to Zhu right at the end of his career. Maybe a lack of big names for Ricky, or am I being a bit harsh, Ozzy? He did tend to lose the really, really big ones.
Well, he did, didn't he? It's a fact that the Mayweather and Pacquiao ones were his biggest of his career, and he fell short. Don't really count the Senchenko one. It was well, we all know the story. He'd had, what was it, 4 years out, 3 years out, and he came back, and that wasn't the real Ricky Hatton in the ring. I still think he had a career he can be more than proud of. Even wins like Malignaggi and stuff like that, whilst they're not top names, Malignaggi had a more than successful career. What was he? Was he a 2-weight world champion as well? Something like that. Was it just... Yeah, he won. Yeah, he did, yeah. So he was a 2-weight world champion, so it's not a disgraceful win by no means. I can probably see why Klitschko was inducted. He dominated the heavyweight scene, and whilst the wins weren't there, it's hard to ignore him. I can see Hatton definitely getting inducted further down the line. What's the overall process of this now? Do they induct so many in each year now, or how many go in?
Those 3, and then all the broadcasters have been taken off the nominations, which is about 32. All the the Boxing Writers of America have voted for them, and those 3 will be going in.
Right, okay, then, yeah. So then it just comes around next time, which obviously I won't be shocked to see Hatton up there again. He's done a hell of a lot in the ring. So, yeah, so it's one of those, really, that obviously it's a shame. I like Ricky Hatton. He did a hell of a lot for British boxing. I mean, the followings he have, I don't think we'll see it again. I can't see Joshua taking an army of fans like Hatton did over to America. Not at all. So, yeah, fingers crossed for Ricky. He had a real good career. And I'm not surprised he didn't get him, but it will be good to see him down the line in the future.
That's great. Thank you, Ozzy, for closing us out. Ozzy Smith there. Rob Kelly was on the line as well, and also Andy Patterson. And thanks to Adam Smith for joining us. And thanks to everyone who's on Patreon as well. I know that there weren't too many in the chat tonight listening, but obviously the guys will be able to hear it on the iTunes feed if you have access to that as well. Anybody want to add anything in quickly before we head out of here? We will be back on Sunday, so there's no great urge.
Yeah, just wanted to put that in context. Barry McGuigan's in the Hall of Fame, like, isn't he? So I would have expected to see Ricky Hatton in there at some stage. But yeah, it was great to hear some of those names bring up a lot of memories, like Julian Jackson, Don Curry, and all them. Like, so anyway, just that was a final point on McGuigan there. Hall of Fame fighter and promoter.
Hall of Fame fighter and promoter. Well said, Rob. And Arturo Gatti, I think, is knocking around there as well. So that's the criteria. That's absolutely fine with me. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you all again on Sunday evenings at 8 o'clock. Thank you for subscribing, all of our Patreon friends. All the best. Cheers. Bye.